Hey everyone, Vishal Kapoor here, and welcome back to A Real Estate Wisdom with Vish. Today, I want to talk about something that a lot of tenants, showing agents, and even good landlords deal with far too often. The weird, frustrating, and completely avoidable things some landlords and listing agents do that waste everyone's time. And I want to be clear from the start. This episode is not about attacking every landlord. It is not about attacking every listing agent. And it is definitely not about saying that every lease deal is the same. What it is about is calling out a real problem in the industry. Because in a real estate, especially in leasing, there are situations where a property is listed in a way that is disorganized, unprofessional, misleading, or just plain careless. And when that happens, the people who pay the price are usually the tenants trying to find a home and the showing agents trying to do their job properly. And honestly, that needs to be talked about more. Let's start here. A lot of people think leasing is simple. They think it's just a rental. How complicated can it be? But anyone who has actually worked in the space knows leasing can become messy very quickly if the process is not handled properly. There are tenants trying to move on a deadline. There are landlords trying to protect their property. There are showing agents trying to coordinate schedules, answer questions, and make the process smooth. And then there are some people in the middle who do things in a way that creates confusion from the very beginning. That is where the waste starts. Not because of one big dramatic mistake, usually it is the small stuff, the sloppy stuff, the lazy stuff. The someone else will deal with it stuff. And those are exactly the things I want to talk about today. One of the biggest mistakes is listing a property before it is truly ready to be shown. Now, sometimes there are valid reasons for timing issues. A tenant may still be in place, cleaning may be scheduled, repairs may still be pending. That happens. But what should not happen is listing a property publicly while the showing process is still a mess behind the scenes. Because what does that do? It creates false expectations. It wastes the time of agents who are trying to book showings. It frustrates tenants who are trying to organize their day. And it makes the whole listing look unprofessional. If a property is not ready, do not rush it onto the market just to say it is active. In leasing, timing matters, but so does preparation. And if those two things are not aligned, the result is usually chaos. Another issue is when a listing says the property is available for showings, but then every request gets hit with a new restriction. Only after a certain time, not on certain days, not if the tenant is working from home, not if the landlord is busy, not if the weather is bad, not if the showing agent cannot confirm fast enough. So many reasons. At some point, the process becomes almost impossible. Now I understand that people have privacy, work schedules, family routines, and personal boundaries. That is all fair. But there is a difference between reasonable conditions and making the process so complicated that nobody wants to deal with it. And when that happens, the listing becomes hard to show, hard to trust, and hard to rent. The best properties do not just look good, they are easy to understand and easy to access. That matters. If I had to name one of the biggest time wasters in leasing, it would be poor communication. Because so many issues could be avoided if people simply responded clearly and on time. If a showing agent asks a straightforward question, the answer should not take 3 days. If the tenant needs to know whether parking is included, that should be clear. If the landlord has a special condition, that should be communicated upfront. If there's a pet restriction, it should not be hidden in a vague sentence at the end of the listing. When communication is slow or unclear, everyone ends up chasing basic information that should have been available from the beginning. And in real estate, that is not a small issue. That can mean losing a qualified tenant. That can mean wasting multiple showings. That can mean missing the right opportunity entirely. Good communication is not a bonus. It is part of the job. Another frustrating thing is when the showing agent arrives and the property is nothing like what was expected. Maybe the place was not cleaned. Maybe the lights are off. Maybe the tenant was not told properly. Maybe there are new restrictions that were never mentioned. Maybe some rooms are off limits. Maybe the showing feels rushed or awkward because nobody prepared properly. That is not a good experience for anyone. The tenant searching for a home wants to feel comfortable. The showing agent wants to do their job well. The landlords want the unit rented. And yet, one poorly handled showing can make the whole process feel disorganized and unprofessional. This is why presentation matters in leasing just as much as it does in sales. You do not get a second chance to make a first impression. This one is a big problem. If the listing says one thing and the actual property is something else, people lose trust immediately. For example, the listing says parking included, but it is not. The listing says available immediately, but it's not. The listings makes the unit sounds private, but there are shared spaces. The listing makes the place sound spacious, but it is actually tight. The listing says utilities are included, but they are not. That is not just an inconvenience. That is a credibility issue. And once people feel misled, they do not forget it. A good showing agent can work with honest information. A good tenant can make decisions based on facts. A good landlord can attract the right renter by being transparent. But misleading information wastes everybody's time and damages trust. This is where I want to get a little more direct. There are tens of realtors who do leases not because they actually want to do the job properly, but because they want to keep the client close so that when that clients decide to sell, they will choose them for the listing. Now, relationship building is real. Staying connected with clients is a part of the business. Nobody is denying that. But here is the problem. Some agents take on a lease, do a terrible job, or barely do anything at all, and then still expect the relationship to survive because at least I stayed in the loop. That is not enough. If you are going to handle a lease, then handle it properly. Respond clearly. Coordinate professionally. Respect people's time. Follow through. Make the process smooth. Because when an agent does a sloppy job on a lease, it does not just hurt that one deal, it makes professional agents look bad. It lowers trust in the process, and it sends the message that leasing is some kind of throwaway task. It is not. A lease is a real transaction. A tenant is making a real life decision. A landlord is trusting you with a real asset. And showing agents are investing real time and energy to make the process happen. So either do it professionally or do not do it at all. Do not take something on just to keep a client warm if you are not willing to give it to the attention it deserves. That kind of half effort is exactly what hurts the industry. Let me talk specifically about showing agents for a moment. Because showing agents are often the ones absorbing the friction. They are the ones confirming times. They are the ones answering follow-up questions. They are the ones driving to the property. They are the ones trying to manage tenant expectations. They are the ones who look unprepared when the listing side is unorganized. And that is unfair. A showing agent should not have to chase down basic information. A showing agent should not be stuck apologizing for someone else's poor preparation. A showing agent should not arrive at a property and feel like they are improvising because nobody else planned properly. The showing agent's time has value too. And if people in the process do not respect that, then the whole leasing experience becomes harder than it needs to be. Tenants also deserve more respect than they often get. Because for a tenant, looking for a home is not just a casual exercise. It is personal, it is emotional, it can be stressful, and it often has a deadline attached to it. Maybe they need to move by month end. Maybe they are relocating for work. Maybe they are trying to get closer to school. Maybe they are leaving a current home that no longer works for them. So, when they book a showing, they are investing time, energy, and hope into that process. If the property is not ready, if the showing is chaotic, or if the listing turns out to be misleading, the tenant is the one left feeling disappointed. And that matters, really matters, because leasing should not feel like a game where people are constantly being surprised. It should feel organized, respectful, and clear. So, why does this keep happening? In many cases, it is because people underestimate leasing. They think it is low priority. They think it is less important than sales. They think it does not require the same level of effort because it doesn't make listing agent that much money what they make in sales. But that mindset is exactly the problem. Leasing can be fast moving, high pressure, and very detail sensitive. And when people treat it casually, the results usually show up very quickly. Sometimes it is not even bad intentions. Sometimes it is just poor systems. Sometimes it is a lack of experience. Sometimes it is simply laziness. And sometimes it is agents trying to do too many things without giving each file enough attention. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Wasted time, frustrated people, and a weaker professional image. That brings up an important question. Should you list a tenanted property or a vacant property if you want proper exposure? And the honest answer is, it depends. It depends on the property, the timing, and the goal of the listing. A vacant property is often easier to show, easier to photograph, and easier for people to visualize. There are no schedule conflicts, no access issues, and no disruption to someone already living there. But a tenanted property is a reality in many cases, especially in rental markets where the unit is still occupied while being marketed. In those situations, the key is not whether the property is tenanted or vacant. It is how professionally the process is handled. If the tenant is there, the showings need to be organized properly. The communications needs to be respectful. The access needs to be smooth. And the listing agent needs to make sure the property is still presented in the best possible way. Because if a tenanted property is badly managed, it can hurt exposure. People may avoid booking, showings may become difficult, and the property may not get the attention it deserves. So really, the question is not just whether to list tenanted or vacant. The real question is which setup will allow the property to be shown properly, attract the right people, and create the best possible experience for everyone involved. Now, let's talk about the better way. Professionalism in leasing is not complicated. It means being clear, being responsive, being honest, being organized, and respecting the other people involved. It means if the property is not ready, you do not rush it. It means if there are restrictions, you communicate them early. It means if someone asks a question, you answer it properly. It means if you take on the lease, you treat it like a real assignment, not a favor you are doing on the side. Professionalism is not about being fancy. It is about being reliable. And reliability is what people remember. Good agents should ask themselves a few simple questions before they taking on a lease. Am I actually going to give this file proper attention? Am I going to communicate clearly? Am I going to protect my client's interest without wasting other people's time? Am I going to represent this transaction in a way that reflects well on me? Am I treating this lease like a real opportunity or like a placeholder until the next sale? Those are important questions, because if you are doing leasing only to stay close to a client and you are not giving in real effort, you are not helping anyone. You are not helping the tenant. You are not helping the landlord. You are not helping the showing agent. And in the long run, you are not helping your own reputation either. The bigger lessons here is simple. Real estate is a relationship business, but relationships are not built on half effort. They are built on trust, and trust comes from doing the small things properly. A lot of people in this business say they care about service, but service is not what you say. It is what you consistently do. And when someone takes on a lease, they should do it with the same level of care they would want it for their own deal. That is what separates a professional from someone just collecting opportunities. So yes, there are weird things some landlords and listing agents do that waste time, but the deeper issue is not just weird behavior. It is a lack of professionalism. And in this market, with people already stressed, already busy, and already trying to make important decisions, that is not something to take lightly. If you are going to do leasing, do it properly. If you are going to represent a property, represent it honestly. If you are going to work with people, respect their time. And if you are not willing to do that, then do not do a sloppy job just to keep someone as a future client, because half done work hurts everyone. This is Vish from Real Estate Wisdom with Vish. Value, integrity, service, and homeownership. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Disclaimer: the information provided in this podcast is for informational purpose only and should not be considered as financial or investment advice. Consult with your professional before making any real estate decisions.